Coming up on The Returned.
Next thing I experience is me spiraling out of my body at 360-degree peripheral vision. Wow, this is so amazing. What is happening? I realized that everything had stopped. It was like a sort of freeze frame. Everything around me had no body. My awareness pulled my gaze down. That is me laying down there. I've been hit by something. Then everything again went black.
Hi, and welcome to The Returned. The truth always follows you back. Hi, and welcome to The Returned, a place where we share near-death stories, out-of-body experiences, spiritual awakenings, signs from spirit, and the journeys of healers and lightworkers from around the world. Today, I have the honor to sit with Alexandra Kallos. Her journey began with a tragic accident and led her into the void, a life review, and a profound downloads that shaped her awakening. Alex, welcome to The Returned.
Yeah, thank you so much.
You're very welcome. Alexandra, before we step into the extraordinary parts of your experience, the void, the reviews, the downloads, I'd love to begin basically with your human side. So who you were before that day. And it doesn't have to be long. Just give us a little idea of who Alex was prior to the shift.
Of course. So I was a very bright, happily alive teenager. It happened when I was 28 years old. I was living in Amsterdam. I had a wonderful boyfriend. So I had already traveled a lot. I started traveling the world from when I was 19. So I had already had quite a number of adventures under my belt. I had lived in the States also. I had gone to the other side of the world, New Zealand, Japan, India. And so at some point, I really wanted to come back to the Netherlands, to Holland, because my dream had really been to study art. So I come from quite an artistic background because I've been a dancer. I was a contemporary dancer, and the dance also allowed me to travel. So you could say that, I was really with two feet planted firmly, in my life and traveling the world and enjoying myself immensely. So then when I came back to Holland, to Amsterdam, and got into art school, that was another big highlight. So I was studying in an art college in Amsterdam. And when my accident happened, it actually happened in spring, in the end of April, which, so it was on a very beautiful spring morning. And I remember I was on my bicycle, the wind in my hair, and there was sunshine. And it was one of those rare spring days in Holland where, you have a clear blue sky and the first spring sun rays, and you're so happy because the good weather is coming. And so I'm cruising down the canals, and there was this extra elevated energy because it was 3 days before the big national holiday, which is called King's Day. Only in those days, in the 90s, it was called Queen's Day because we had a queen, Queen Beatrix.
Oh,
And
wow.
that is the biggest celebration of the year in Holland. It's a national holiday, and it's like a 24-hour bonanza of music and dancing and people drinking and being happy, and everything is happening outside, and it's like freedom, and
Hmm.
it's beautiful. So there was this like happy sort of like anticipation that in 3 days' time, you know, me and all my friends would celebrate this beautiful day, and that it would probably be with beautiful weather.
Right.
So I go down the canals. It's a Friday morning.
Hmm.
So I get to the middle of town, and there is a big crossing, and it's also by a canal. And so I stopped for a red light, and a very big vehicle pulled up beside me on the left side. And then the light went green, and this vehicle started to immediately accelerate. So it actually started to gain speed, and it started to turn to the right. And I was meant to go straight. To continue my journey was to go straight. And so this very big vehicle started to push me in the curb. And I remember that when it started to pass me, I actually looked up to the cabin, to the driver's seat, and sort of screamed something just like, "Hey, watch out!" Even thinking that maybe they would hear it, that it would make a difference. And then it just kept going. So I'm really, really pushed into the sort of the right hand side into the curb. And then the next thing I remember is that I felt a very big, like a thud from behind. And then everything went black. And the next thing I experience is me spiraling out of my body. I remember it was that sensation of sort of literally this spiral out of my body, and then at some point sort of stopping. And the first thing that came into my awareness was that I had 360-degree peripheral vision. And I was completely ecstatic. Like I thought, wow, this is so amazing. What is happening? Like what an experience. And so I linger for a moment in this, enjoying that beautiful view and that sensation of having, that 360-degree panoramic vision. And I realized that everything had it was like everything had stopped. It was like a sort of freeze frame. I had stopped, and everything around me had also stopped.
Wow.
And then, as I starting to realize that I had no body, I looked down. So your consciousness, my awareness pulled my gaze down. And then I started to slowly to sort of check out the scene. And then I started to see different elements. I started to see me with the bicycle on the street. I saw a pedestrian crossing in black and white. I was very close to it. And when I sort of zoomed in, I saw blood or something dark trickling between my legs. And that also my legs were sort of cradling the frame of the bike in a strange way.
Mm.
And as I looked, I didn't feel any pain. It was almost like I felt no emotion. I was very detached. I was just from this distant place. I was just sort of going over the scene. And the more details that I saw, the more it started to register in me, like, okay, that is me laying down there. I've been hit by something. By
Mhm.
then, I still had no full knowing or knowledge of what had actually driven over my body. So as we know that there was this very big vehicle. So I was literally run over by a truck, and the impact of the back wheels of this stone truck had caused my spirit, my soul to detach, to go out of my body, to leave my body.
Mm-hmm.
And then very slowly, so from the out of body state, I started to see very slowly things started to move again. And I started seeing people moving towards me, people running.
Mm-hmm.
And I started to sort of have these thoughts like, why are all these people running towards me? Ooh, there's a lot of people. They're coming very close. And then when I started to sort of become more aware of the full impact, the full sort of the seriousness of the situation, I was like, okay, this is very serious. I had an accident. And when I looked at the body and understanding that it was me, as sort of this identification, and that's the first time I think I felt a sort of an emotion, because I thought, wow, I think I'm dead. I must be dead. And then I started to wish, I thought, wow, can't these people not sort of stay at a
Mm-hmm.
distance? Can't they just leave me in peace and leave me there to die? That's what I remember.
Mm-hmm.
And it saddened me that sort of when you feel that, when you think that, it was quite solemn. And then my gaze, my awareness was drawn to someone, a man that came from the direction of the little bridge, and he started running, and I saw him sort of starting to, let's say, manage the people. So he was making sure that they were not going to move me, that they stay at a distance, and he squatted next to me on the street. And I could see from the distance that he pulled something white from his pocket. And I learned later that it was a handkerchief. And so he squatted next to me, and with one hand, he took my hand. He held my hand, and with his other hand, he wiped my face. And more than likely, that is what saved my life. So he wiped all the vomit, the bile that had got stuck in my airways from the impact that had, from the truck that had crushed my body. And he stayed with me. And then when I sort of understood the whole scenario, I started to again sort of detach myself.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought, okay, I understand it. I get it. And I was like, well, it's a pity because I'm still really quite young and I would have liked to have more life. But okay, I accept that this is the end. And I am prepared to let go. And in that moment, everything changed. And it was really like I had been like a kite on a very thin thread. So there was this last remaining connection to my body, to that life. And in that moment, I decided to let go. It was like the cord snapped. And I started to feel like I was shooting away from that place and shooting away from Earth at a very high velocity.
Wow.
And then everything again went black. So I went to this void, and I have no idea how long that lasts, but you're in the void. And then from the void, the first moment that I reawakened in consciousness, I was floating in the stars, amongst the stars. I was floating in space. And this is a very, very pleasant, for me anyway, it's a very pleasant experience. And I actually remembered that I had done this as a child, because it was really like more like a memory. I
Oh.
remembered in the moment, like, oh, but I've been here before. I remember this. So there was
Mhm.
no fear. And what I also recall very, very profoundly was this sense of, not having a body. You are nobody. You have no identity. You have no name. So you are just this awareness. You are just this spirit that's sort of floating there, registering things. And it's a sense of total liberation. To me, it felt like total freedom. Yeah. And people ask me about this a lot of times because they find it very scary, because they say, but what, how does it feel when you have no identity, when you have no body?
Mhm.
And actually, it's the opposite of fear. It's so expansive. It's just to be fully awake in being total awareness. And it's a gift, really. And of course, we can have this experience also by doing some certain kind of meditations. It doesn't always have to happen because as a cause of trauma. In my case, in that particular moment, it was brought on by, something very traumatic, but it was the first sensation was that of liberation, peace, and just this knowing that you are just awareness, you are just pure consciousness. So I'm just happily, being awareness, floating amongst the stars. And space is also not black. In my
Mhm.
experience, and I know also from some other people, that so space is a very dark blue. It's more like a sort of deep velvety blue. So it's not dark, it's not black. And you have this mm, the witnessing of certain lights, stars. I cannot say that I saw any planets, but it wasn't all dark. That was at least my memory. And then I remember being sort of magnetically guided towards a golden infinity sign. So my spirit, my awareness is pulled towards that. And when I arrived there, um, it was like I was suspended above it. I was floating on top of it. And this golden sign, this energy was alive. So it wasn't like a very flat, one-dimensional, let's say, depiction, but it was very much 3D, let's say. And this
Mhm.
energy was pulsating, and it was very, like, I could feel, I could sense the energy. And I later actually started to understand that it was a sort of, in a way, it was a sort of portal. It was a place where I received an energetic upgrade or downloads. Yeah. So it was an energetic experience. So that lasted for a while. And then I also recall that my awareness, my consciousness was seeing certain scenes from the life that I had just departed. So
Mhm.
let me again remind everyone that I did not go through a tunnel. I did not go to a light. I didn't see a light. Yeah. And I certainly did not see a tunnel. So in that sense, for many years, I also felt that my NDE was quite different than from many other stories, because those two elements that are so dominant, so prevalent in many other NDE stories, they certainly didn't take place in my experience. So my consciousness was registering certain scenes from my life. And it wasn't also I don't remember that it played it backwards or that I saw my whole life flashing in front of me. It was more that certain things, and they were not even highlights, let's say, in my personal experience.
Mm.
It was like something that maybe my higher consciousness was choosing certain themes that were important to me to see in that particular moment. And what I remember very vividly was that it showed me a scene where I was in my early teenage years, and I was having an argument with my mom. And we are having a very heated, argument. Sort of, there was like shouting, and there's a lot of negativity. And then what happened was that my energy, my consciousness went into my mother. And I started to have the experience. I started to live what my mom had experienced while being in this very heavy argument with me. And I felt her frustration. I felt her pain. I felt her sadness. Like, why is my daughter why are we having so much negativity? Why is all this hostility between us? And it really hurt her. I felt her hurt. And that was so profound that I remember thinking, wow, that I had never realized the impact, the power of our words. Yeah.
Mm.
That it's energy. They are like arrows piercing through people's, bodies and energy fields. So I remember I brought that with me. Like, that was really very profound. And then I went back to the void. Then it was back to black, as I always call it. It was back to the void. And of course, this void is also it's a very multi-dimensional place. Yeah, it's not as you've shared with me that you've also had this experience of being in the void. And the void is not scary either.
No.
It is also very profound, because it is also in many ways a very fertile place. Yeah, it's the place of infinite potential. It's where
Absolutely.
everything, all souls, get birthed, yeah, from that particular space. So then I was back in the void, and then the next reawakening in consciousness was in what I call the blue zone. And this blue zone was like a completely different dimension, and it had all shades of indigo blue, very vibrant electric blue. And it was, again, I was just awareness. Obviously, you have no body, there's none of that. So you are just in consciousness, and I'm admiring this sensation, this, cognizing this blue dimension. And not only was this blue light or this blue energy in so many different shapes and so alive, it also had a sound. It had a cosmic beat. And I recalled that I became one, that it was like almost like I was breathing, I was moving, I was, merging in that deep blue with this cosmic beat, like a cosmic heartbeat. And that also lasted for a while. That space felt honestly like infinite. It was, of course, infinity. It didn't have a particular shape. It was just space. It was a dimensional frequency that was represented in those particular shades of blue. And I would later learn why that was very important and why I was actually there. So I will come back to this later.
Okay.
So again, I left from the blue space. I went back in the void. And then for a last time, I re-emerged into what I would call source energy, or the God energy, the creator energy. And that was the most overwhelmingly profound experience of love, unconditional love, of infinity, of belonging, of being home, of being whole. And for someone who had actually really struggled with belonging, having lived in so many different places, and I really remember that this feeling of belonging, of being exactly where I needed to be and how good that felt, it made a very deep impression on my awareness, on my consciousness. And that feeling of unconditional love, it's not a love like we perceive it here in the human 3D experience. It is a love that is beyond the personal love. It's beyond the physical love. It's cosmic love. That's probably the best way to describe it, but it is love. It is a love of oneness, of unity. And it is so all encompassing that it consumes you. And I remember being overjoyed that I was there. It was, if I have a recollection of how it felt, it was being like with a white bluish light, and you still at moments have this awareness that you are individualized consciousness, but most of the time your awareness is just in this oneness frequency. So you are one with everything. You are everything. You're everything. And that's also something that I think is very, very difficult to really fully perceive, in a 3D, in the dimension that we are here. And so it was this perfect joy, this totally, like beyond words. I often say that I feel that every description I give of it, it can never, words and language can never do it justice, because it is completely beyond, it's beyond language, because it is beyond the human perception, where we are right now. Our brain, our cognitive abilities are not fully able to hold that. Yeah. But while you're in it, it makes perfect sense. You are that. And so I feel that that is sort of describing the outline of it. And that's the best I can give it. And so while I'm very happily being in oneness and being everything and being home, all of a sudden there was this voice. And this voice said, "You can't stay. You have to go back." And I was completely shocked. I was very saddened. And I was really thinking like, but no. Like I'm perfectly happy, ecstatically happy. This is exactly where I need to be. I want to stay here. And how I remember it was that what unfolded was the sort of bargaining with God, the bargaining with Source. And of course, all of this is done without words, without sound. It is a telepathic communication. But from my awareness, I was really pleading to to be able to stay there. So I was like, no, please let me stay. I'm completely home. I belong. I'm in love. And so this went on for a while. Of course, being in those dimensions that exist outside of the linear space-time conundrum, I have no idea. There's no way of telling how long, but it felt very long.
Yeah.
And my being there in that beautiful source energy also felt very, very long, years, if I had to put any sort of quantification on it. So I bargained, I pleaded, I begged, but this voice really, it wasn't really engaging. It was just me begging. Then at some point, I remember, yes, it's really quite funny. And then it just repeated its command. And what I remember was that it said, no, you can't stay. You're going back. And then before I knew it, I had left this divine, you know, place of home and belonging and oneness. And then my first recollection is awakening in intensive care in my broken body, with my whole body and my heart being tied to a respirator machine and to many other machines, and in a very strange place, in a room by myself, where it felt like it was forever gray. There was no telling whether it was night or day. It was another very strange
Wow.
situation. Yeah.
That doesn't sound fun, does it? Coming back to that after being in that beautiful place you were in. Wow. And how long were you there for?
In intensive care.
Yeah.
I was in intensive care about 8 days. And then they moved me to a normal hospital floor, but I was again in a room by myself, which they do, which they offer to patients that still have a very high risk of dying,
Oh,
because I
okay.
was in a very, very bad state. So, on the one hand, that was very serious, and you're in a room by yourself. But I think, in the long run and in retrospect, it was a lifesaver. It saved my sanity, because I was in hospital for about 5.5 months. And to be in a room by yourself for that long, I think it saved my sanity. So
Yeah, it
that was the
sounds like that.
silver lining, let's say.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Wow, you went through a lot there.
Yeah.
I wanted to go back just to the beginning. I always wonder this. Do you ever feel do you ever think why we have these life reviews? Why we have not just that, why we go to these places? You went to four realms, was it? So one black, blue, a space, and then blue, and then back to the heavenly. Have you ever thought, you're not going to be staying, but did you ever think, why did I get this far? Why did I see a life review? Why all of this for you to send me back? Did you go through that?
Yes, and in fact, um, I did for quite a good amount of time, because, to be really honest, when in the first period in hospital, and especially uh, during intensive care, after I came out of my um, like chemically induced coma,
Yeah.
and then the first few weeks in the room by myself, I was extremely depressed. And this happens to most people that have these NDEs and have these very profound experiences. And so I was no exception, because I really, really thought, like, I was in this most magnificent mystical place, and now I am back here. And especially because your body is really, my body was broken in I broke every bone in my body. I had such severe damage that it was extremely traumatizing to be back in the physical body after. So the difference between where I had been and then the reality of being back in 3D, in my human capacity, in the human experience. Yeah, of course, it was shocking. And you're also very confused. You're not really
Absolutely.
in a very balanced, you know,
Mm-hmm.
space of mind. So, of course, it was
Yeah.
probably all I could think of in the beginning. And
Mm-hmm.
you're very sad. And because you're
Oh.
also processing many, many things, because you've just had that totally mind expanding experience. Then you're back, in a hospital, for most people, and that certainly went for me. I didn't even really know what had happened to me. They
Mm-hmm.
had to tell me. So in intensive care, one of the nurses, a male nurse, actually took a little bit of time and actually whispered in my ear what had happened to me. He said, like, if you can hear me, like you may not
Oh.
know. And well, you had a very bad accident and that's why you ended up here, but you're stable now. But, that was a very big, let's say, gap in the remembrance, in the recall. And I actually think that your consciousness, I think the body does that out of survival.
Yeah.
I think it's a sort of instinct, to preserve the brain, to preserve the body.
Mm-hmm.
So actually, in the beginning, I didn't even really know what had exactly happened to me. So
Of
this,
course.
it comes in the first weeks
Mm-hmm.
afterwards. Yes.
Interesting. What do you think the significance was of each realm that you did go to, especially blue? I haven't heard about that realm before.
Mhm. I think the significance, first of all, of course, every realm is a different dimensional realm. Yeah. And I think that each of them has their own intrinsic attributes, meaning. Um, I think they're all necessary. In that moment, they were necessary for my soul to have the most appropriate unfolding. I went to the dimensions that were important for me in that moment to guide me on that journey and also to guide me back to my body. And what I learned later was that this blue zone, this indigo blue zone,
Mhm.
actually was the dimension where um, my old soul had been taken out of my body. So when you die, when the soul fully leaves the body, there is a moment where the body is completely vacant. And then either the same soul in the same particular, with the same soul components comes back into the body, or a different soul. Yeah, there are different scenarios possible
Mhm.
that comes back or moves into that body. In my case, um, my higher self, my divine self, my soul self, had decided that the old self was going to be taken out and that a whole new soul part, a higher soul part, was going to be allowed to enter into the body. And this is very significant because it's what we call a walk-in scenario. And
Okay.
mostly these walk-in scenarios are part of your soul contract. So I had already, prior to my birth, so prior to, let's say, the old soul, had already, in accepting the soul contract, agreed to the possibility of having that accident and then consequently having this walk-in experience. Yeah, this is all kind of predestined.
Mm-hmm.
And it was even more significant because none of my old soul came back. So it was a completely new soul part. It was a soul part that had attributes, a frequency from the fifth and sixth dimension.
Mm.
And so it is an indigo ray. Indigo, all these colors, they represent a frequency. And so that part was prepared and came in. And then you can say, so why was that agreed? Why was that orchestrated? Why was that so important?
Mm-hmm.
And that has to do with my purpose, because my soul had agreed to awaken, to self-actualize, to go on that spiritual journey back to light, back to the realization that we are God in a physical form, that we are all divine beings,
Mm-hmm.
and that I had agreed to be a messenger of that, to help other people awaken and help them in those, very profound awakening processes, that I would share my message about my death experience, that death is not real, death does not exist. It's just a transition from one particular dimension to another, and that actually the death process itself, the moment of the detaching from the body, is very serene. And so it is also very important to highlight, and that's also part of my purpose, that we have been so conditioned over thousands of years by, religious and social cultural indoctrinations, to fear death. We are completely, most people, you could say 99% of people, they are petrified of dying. Yeah. And then
Mm-hmm.
there's
Yeah.
also all these ideas that maybe you go to hell. Not everybody apparently is going to go to heaven. All sorts of terrible things can happen once you leave this realm, when you
Mm-hmm.
leave your body. And there are many people, atheists, believe that, you go into this nothing. It's the big annihilation or into oblivion or something. And I am here to testify, that none of that is correct, that none of that is actually true. And that really death in itself is the most alchemical, mystical moment in a human life. And it's incredibly important, actually, that not only do we lose this fear of death, but that we are prepared for death. Because the more we are prepared, the more we can surrender into this most sacred of, of experiences. Birth and death are the same thing. They are just in reverse. So
I was just going to say that.
yeah, in a culture, like Western, especially Western culture, we worship, we are so like, oh, birth is so, it's so sacred, it's so beautiful, but we are so scared. It's so on the other side of the spectrum. And
Mm-hmm.
from a spiritual, energetic perspective, they are exactly the same process in reverse. Yeah. So
Mm-hmm.
death is extremely sacred. It's extremely pristine. And if you look at Buddhism, for instance, certain Vedic philosophies, they are all about preparing for death.
That's
And
right.
actually,
That's
every
right.
life should be the preparation for death.
I love that. I just wanted to hone in on one more thing in that same area is the significance of the infinity symbol. What did that mean and signify to you when you came back?
I couldn't place that. I didn't really have,
Mm-hmm.
let's say, an immediate understanding. So
Mm-hmm.
a lot of my story, a lot of the recollection, the remembering of the different dimensions, they come in waves. It wasn't like all of a sudden one moment I had
Yeah.
this. the
Mhm.
movie came to my life and I understood it all. Really not. It comes in flashes. And I think that the thing that I really most remembered was being with God, being with the divine, being with in oneness. And that had made me so sad, because the bridging that gap from being in that to then having to heal, being in recovery in a body that is in so much pain.
Mm.
So there was a longing for that. So I was definitely remembering that recollection that was very predominant in the beginning. And then other parts started to sort of flood back into my memory, into my consciousness. Oh, but I also experienced this, and I also, and then this, like, oh, but it was so nice to go and float amongst the stars, and, like this. And so, and then at some point, yes, then there was a sort of order to it. But I honestly couldn't say that the first few months, its meaning really came over time.
Of course.
And also as my own spiritual awareness and my own spiritual understandings started to grow, it was very helpful to get a framework, to get a handle on what had actually happened to me. Because in those days, in the 90s, and people forget that we didn't have internet,
right.
there was no one, there were no YouTube channels, with thousands of NDE stories. There was a few books that were written about people that went, into the afterlife, and they were very rare. And they also had very little data. So there you are, I was a really young girl in the prime of her life, and I was taken out. I had this like totally mind-boggling, multi-dimensional experience. And then when you start to process this and you start to rebuild your life, you literally start to rebuild yourself, because with that whole walk-in scenario, I also really was a new me. And that sounds quite corny maybe, but in my case, and it was very real. And I really remember, like, it was a process of years where you have to sort of make a new reconfiguration. There are all these new elements to yourself that really have to sort of come together in a new reconfiguration. There is a new version of you. And that doesn't happen, in one moment.
Right.
Because the mind lags, even though all the components are there. Yeah. It's, the brain and all the other layers to your being, they lag behind. We have to do so much processing before all of that is even, in a sort of comprehensible way. That's why also it was such a profound experience for me, because the story of the NDE, as beautiful as it is, the girl who got crushed by the truck and then makes it out alive, against all the statistics. And of course that is real, but that's only one part of the story, as beautiful as it is.
Yeah.
What really follows, how you integrate this and how your life sort of takes off from that, and all the learnings, that you take from this. That's a much longer process. And that's really, I think, where the real treasure lies, in that. Just many people have NDEs.
Absolutely.
But if we don't evolve, if we don't take, the wisdom that it allows us, I think that it's just another story. But of course, that's my own personal perspective. But it's taken many years, and I think it's really important to highlight that, because nowadays people really think, oh, you have many people, thousands of people have NDEs nowadays, and it looks like this nice sort of cookie cutter story, and it's beautiful. And then many people, they meet Jesus or they have some kind of metaphysical experience, and then they're back alive and everything is hunky dory. And really, in my case, that was far from it. So I started to order many books. In Amsterdam, I started ordering books because most books on NDEs are written in English. So I started ordering books from America, and I started reading the Tibetan book of the of the of the dead, of dying, and I started to be interested in meditation and some metaphysical studies, and that all of that, bit by bit, that offers you the right, the new understanding, the right perspective. And that's when I started to be able to put all these different sort of highlighted experiences of my different dimensions, sort of in the right framework. That's really the best way I can describe it.
Yeah. I find it fascinating that you actually did die and you had someone else step in, another part of you, basically, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And do you think that that was because you needed to get on with your purpose? Yes, I thought so too.
Very well said. Yes.
Hmm.
And
Yeah. So you actually had a death. Hmm.
I did, and I died twice within 3 days.
Oh, wow.
So while I was in intensive care, so I died on the street. So as a result of the impact of the accident, and because what happens when there is so much internal damage, and you are in this chemically induced coma, many times, and especially people who have, collisions with very big vehicles, in my case, most of them, if they don't die within the first 12 hours, they still die within the next 72 hours, the next 3 days, because the body is not able to process all this trauma. And what happened is that at the third day, so it happened on a Friday, so on the Sunday night, I died again because my body went into what they call a shock trauma. So all my organs started to shut down. And the last one that goes is your heart. And the first thing is that the heart starts to beat very, very, very fast. And then it starts to slow down very dramatically. And then it stops. So I've had 2 death experiences because I clinically died 2 times. To be really honest, I have no real cognitive remembrance of that because I was in a coma.
Right.
But I know that that happened. So I can also say that I don't know exactly what is the proper chronological order of my experience. But I also don't think that it matters because what matters is what I remember and, how, what it meant to me. Yeah. So, but that's really the full story is that.
Beautiful. And the message for humanity. Every time you tell your story, every single time, you're putting out a message, you're eradicating fear. It's very important and it's very, very, very detailed. I absolutely love your story. So if I was to say, I think we talked about that, touched on this a little bit earlier. You believe you planned this. So you believe that we had a pre-birth plan, say, and that was part of it for you. Did that day when you went out, beautiful spring day, you're riding down the canals on your bike, beautiful. I can just imagine. I can actually feel that. Did you have any type of inkling, any feeling that came to you like, no, that doesn't feel right today, or something that told you that this may happen?
No, none whatsoever.
None.
No, no, there was no, no indication that, you know, that something so dramatic was going to happen and that my life was going to change forever. No, not really. No, no, it wasn't. It completely took me by surprise. No.
And so when you came back, and I'm sure it was a long process of healing, um, how did this change your life? What did your life look like after?
Well, I think there are many aspects to that. First of all, I was I was very grateful and lucky enough I could finish. I could graduate and get a bachelor's degree in art. So I could graduate from my art college, and I actually started to use my art as a medium to communicate my story. That I started to use metaphysical space in my photography, in my video art, the best way I could, because I felt this deep need to communicate that with the world, how it is to be outside of 3D. So that became, so let's say the afterlife story became a sort of a red thread in many of my artworks. So that's where it already started. I started to speak about my experience and to emphasize, this what you also said so importantly, to eradicate the fear, that we are really conditioned into this fear and that is not real, that is a learned behavior,
Mhm.
and that
Right.
it's so important to move away from that. Um, and then when I had my full spiritual blossoming, as I call it, that sort of accelerated that whole purpose, or my
Mhm.
personal purpose. Yes, that I was going to really dedicate every day of my life to spread all of these messages. I also, became like a full medium. So all of my psychic abilities came online. I started to receive messages for people, for myself. I was able to see energies. I could see people's auric fields when I would meet new people, and I would shake their hand, for instance, people that I had never seen before. At the moment of shaking their hand, I would see their whole life sort of flash in front of me, and I would receive messages for them. It was very powerful. And I very quickly started to channel messages from higher consciousness, from, for instance, from Metatron. So that took a while, and that it sort of evolved from that. And it's ongoing. And the fact that I sit here now, speak with you, doing all these podcasts, yeah, it's beautiful. And it's all part of, me saying yes. First of all, me saying yes, I will come back to life. I'm not going to stay in this beautiful source energy. So it was very much, the result of me saying yes, and then saying yes to fully accepting, my purpose, and starting, to work as a light
Yep.
worker, a light
Mhm.
weaver,
Yeah.
and help this whole transition to a new earth. I know that
Uh,
you and me and many of us, we are
Many.
here.
Yeah,
We are here
that's
to
right.
bring these messages and to help give that shape, to anchor that frequency. And I am very, very grateful for that. It's been a
Me
beautiful
too.
journey.
Me too. And so I just wanted to be clear about one thing. So prior to your accident, you didn't have these spiritual abilities, or did you?
I had, not to the extent I had them
Y-
afterwards. Um,
Okay.
I was, I was very open as a child.
Oh.
Um, let's say I had very modest abilities.
Okay.
I would also sometimes feel when people would be very close to passing. I would sometimes see things, but it wasn't encouraged. Let's say, and
I see.
it's not like they were afraid of it, or it was just that within my family, you know, it wasn't really encouraged. I do remember very clearly when I was very, very young, as a young girl, when we were still living in Greece, and especially in summer, the skies are so bright. There is a trillion stars. And I remember standing outside on, in a summer night and staring up at the sky and feeling homesick. I always had this, I don't know, this knowing, this memory that I came from there. And um, es- especially in my art years and at art school, I always used to joke that I was the original ET girl, because I was
I like that.
growing sort of in this awareness, but I know that I'm a star seed. I am a little ET. I came from somewhere else, and maybe, they came here on a reconnaissance flight and they left me. And really, I used to joke about it, and it was the joke with me and my friends. But of course, all of this now has a place, because, there are so many star seeds,
Oh,
that
isn't
soul,
there?
my soul came from somewhere else. And now I have a much better understanding of it. And, I can help other people, give that a
I
place,
like
because
that.
there are many star seeds like you and me. And so, but this I had as a child. Yes.
So it just amplified then.
Yeah, it got amplified.
Yeah.
Yes.
Excellent. Wow. And now you're using it to help others.
Yes.
There's no better life than that,
No, that's very true.
right? So for those listening, actually, no, I just want to ask you one more thing before that. If you had a friend who had a loved one that was passing or transitioning, what would you say to them, knowing what you know now?
Regarding the impending death, like someone is about
Yeah,
to pass,
that's right.
yeah, I would definitely share not to be afraid,
Yeah.
um, to prepare and to take it as something very beautiful. I've often described, I use the analogy of a video game. So
Okay.
here, the human existence, so you, the personality, yeah, your spirit is just animating this body, and you have a name and an identity, and there is a certain script. Yeah, this life, my channel, my divine channel often calls this the movie of your life, and you are
Mm-hmm.
the principal player in that movie. And so, and it is like this video game. So you come into this life, you animate a certain character. This character has a certain experience in the video game. There are challenges. Yeah, like some of these games, they're full of obstacles. So, you go through this game, you gain a few points, you reach a certain level, quite literally, and then you die. Yeah, it's game over on the screen.
Mm-hmm.
But what happens in reality is that you don't die. The character dies. Yeah,
Yeah.
the person. So the human dies, but you don't die. So you are really the consciousness that is watching the movie, watching the game. Yeah. So from that small consciousness, that identity, personality construct in this small body, the small consciousness. So when you die, you go back to the infinite consciousness, to the field of infinite creation. So it is really going from this very compressed smallness to, the infinite. And I think if you're able to receive that, you can you can let go of much of your fear. Yeah, I think that's so important
Yeah.
because humans tend to think that we are the only intelligent beings, and we are the only planet with life and all this nonsense. Like it also would be really quite sad if we would be the only ones, right?
True.
Um, if we look at the state of things, you might hope that there are other civilizations out there
Yeah.
that do it, a lot better than we do. But so coming back to someone who is about to leave their body, first of all, what is important, if you have time, if you go into palliative care and you have that time, that is a gift, like treasure.
It is.
Cherish your life. Go over the highlights. Tell everyone that you love them. You know,
Oh, I
this,
love
like
that.
really that. It's such a gift because many people die in an instant.
Right? You're so right. You are so right. That's
And I
beautiful.
think to the person, if it's not the person themselves that's going to pass over, but a loved one or a family member, I would say, they're not going to disappear. They're not, it's not like they're gone forever. Their energy remains. You can always reconnect to them. Their presence, their essence remains. And that also helps also for the family members to not be so scared.
Yeah. Right?
We are never fully
So,
gone. We are everywhere.
where do you think we go? Like, we go to a place, a heaven type environment that maybe resembles an earth? Do we just float around in this beautiful cosmos where we're just wrapped in love? What is your opinion?
Well, also sort of taken from my own experience, there are many possibilities. And what we also know from many other NDE stories, and also people that astral travel, for instance,
Right.
you can enter all of those dimensions, through the astral realm. It's like the astral dimension is, let's say, the container where
Right.
all the other infinite dimensions exist. Yeah, it's not necessary to have those experiences caused by trauma. Yeah. Also, sometimes people who do plant journeys, sacred plant journeys. Yeah, there are many ways to have out of body experiences where we are offered an experience of these different dimensions. This is a very, very grand topic, and it's the $1,000,000 question. Where does the soul go? Where do we go when we die? So we could talk about this for hours because the possibilities are endless. But where it starts is it all depends on your soul's evolution. Where are you on a spiritual, energetic evolution? Yeah, now. So when you die now, it's all according and appropriate to your soul's frequency. Yeah, and what it needs to expand. And then anything is possible. If people really believe in a heaven and they have a particular idea, yes, they can conjure that. If the soul feels that it needs that, it will go to a heaven. Yes, it can all be possible.
Well, that is incredible. You think we create these things?
To a large degree, yes, because we are part of the God creator consciousness. And
I
of
love
course,
that so much.
we are
You are such a pleasure. Wow, you know so much. Wow. For those who are listening, can you share your offerings or services, teachings, or published works that can help others on their spiritual healing path?
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome.
I offer different work, different soul journeys. So as a medium, I channel. So I am a trance channel. So I offer mediumship sessions where you can do soul readings for people, you can channel messages for people. So there's those, the mediumship channeling sessions. I also offer quantum regression um, sessions. These can be one-on-one. They are quite long. They take a number of hours. They're also very profound, often life-changing, because you're really, we go through your subconscious, we make a connection with your soul, we meet with your spirit team, we learn about your purpose. So these are very, very multifaceted, profound experiences. So there is the quantum regression. There is also the QHHT, because I was also a student of Dolores Cannon when she was still
Oh,
alive. So I'm also a QHHT.
my favorite. She
Yes.
was my favorite.
Yeah,
Oh, I love her.
I love her very much too.
Mm.
And she's still communicating with us. Huh? She never went away. She's very much here. She is a beautiful, beautiful soul.
I got goosebumps when you say that.
Yes.
Yeah.
And she would be she would be very excited. She would be very pleasing about these kind of gatherings. Totally her thing.
Oh,
Totally.
yeah. Mm.
So I also teach people how to channel. I also hold group sessions. Um, I can teach people how to clear their chakras, how to clear your auric field. So I have a page on my website where all of my services, my spiritual services,
Okay.
are. So I'm also on Instagram. So I'm on most of the social platforms. And so if you feel, our energies are aligned for anyone, then just connect with me.
I'll
At the
have all
moment,
that.
most of my work is a large portion is very much focused on the one-on-one mentorship. So I do quantum mentoring, and this is extremely fulfilling.
Mm.
And I know some of my mentorship students will be watching this, so you know who you are. I am very, very grateful. Of course, in the mentorship, which takes 3 to 6 months, yeah, we can do the deepest
Wow.
expansion. You know, so
That sounds beautiful. It really does. And that everything is located on your website.
yes,
Oh, perfect. I will have everything in the description below.
thank
Everything. Yeah, you might be getting a phone call from me. I want to join something,
you. Yeah, beautiful.
right? If you could give one message and one message only to humanity, one thing you wish everyone would understand, what would that be?
Is that you are a divine
Hmm,
soul. You carry the divine spark within. And actually, your heart, your higher heart, is the portal to your divinity. So you are a divine soul in a human body. We are
that
all
is
divine.
beautiful.
So go
That is
within
beautiful.
and align with your light. So the more people do this, the more we awaken and, shine our light, yeah, the better the world will become. That is
Mm,
why we are here.
music to my ears. Alexandra, I want to thank you so much for your truth, your courage, your heart, to bringing that to this conversation, to survive what you survived, to travel where you traveled, and to return with the wisdom meant for all of us and all of our awakening is something truly sacred. And I want to thank you so much for bringing that gift to us and to the world.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
It was a real pleasure. It's beautiful. Thank you. And also
You're
thank you
welcome.
for you following your purpose. Yeah.
Oh,
It's
thank you very much.
yes. Thank you so
Oh, I
much.
got goosebumps. You're welcome. And to all of those watching or listening today, let this story open something within you. Let it remind you that you are more than this body, more than this moment, and more than this lifetime. And until next time, stay open, stay curious, and keep returning to the truth within you.